Premier League to introduce regular Friday night live matches on TV. Plan will make more televised football available than ever, but live broadcast of 3 p.m. Saturday match is still not planned. This is from Friday, December 12th, 2014. The Premier League is to introduce regular Friday night live matches and make more football available on television than ever as it attempts to top its current £3 billion broadcasting rights deal, but there are no plans to allow matches to be televised at 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. For the next TV rights deal running from August 2016, the Premier League is to make 168 live matches available per season, 14 more than the current 154, divided into 5 packages of 28 and 2 packages of 14 matches. One of the packages will include up to 10 live games per season on Friday night. Live matches are currently broadcast by BT and Sky on Saturday lunchtime and evenings, and Sunday afternoons and Monday evenings. No single buyer will be allowed to acquire more than 126 matches, the Premier League said, as it published a tender document for the next TV rights auction this past Friday. Now, it's one that was currently the lion's share of games are broadcast on Sky, which paid £2.3 billion for 116 live matches a season in a 3-year deal agreed in 2012. The rights to the other 38 games were bought by BT at a cost of $738 million, making a total of $3.038 billion. Now, you know what? Yeah, it's a case of Sky and BT will go head-to-head for the rights, but the cost of live games is likely to be pushed up further by interest from rival broadcasters such as Discovery, the US media company that now owns Eurosport, and the Qatar-backed Al Jazeera. Televised live Friday night football is not unprecedented, with both BBC and ITV showing Friday night games in the decade before the top flight became the Premier League. Now, Premier League chiefs are thought to have looked to Friday night because most weekend slots are already taken outside the 3 p.m. kickoff time, along with Monday evenings. However, opportunities for Friday night football are likely to be limited by top teams' participation in European competitions during the week. Games will either have to feature teams not competing in Europe or be broadcast during weeks where there is no European competition. Now, I don't like this. I personally don't like the Premier League taking over Friday nights.
Tell me why.
I will tell you why. The reason being, it's not fair on the Football League. That's right. The Football League are already battling for TV time as it is, and it's difficult enough for the Football League to get TV time. Yeah, Sky do the Football League 72 and all that, but Friday nights is for the I think is for the Football League, and that's the way it should stay. Now, at the end of the day, looking at the Premier League, I said the Premier League's got enough. There's what? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, as evidenced by today, with Everton v QPR. Tuesdays and Wednesdays sometimes with the midweek games, which we saw last week. The Champions League, Europa League. The Premier League teams have already got enough exposure. Yeah. The Football League. What other days is the Football League going to lose next? Then are they going? I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're already battling the Europa, the Champions League for exposure and for a look-in. They're already battling that. Saturdays. The Premier League's not going to move from Saturdays. No, it's not. In terms of the lunchtime and the evening kickoffs, they're not going to move. They're not going to move that. Sundays, Premier League ain't going to move from that either. Mondays, they're not going to move from that. No. So the window of opportunity for the Football League 72 to actually get their exposure is being even more limited. No, when I saw this thing about Friday nights. About Friday nights potentially having Premier League games, I'm like, no, I'm not. I said I'm not keen on it. I don't think it's a good idea. I really don't think it's good. It's gonna make the Premier League more lucrative, and if the Football League has another day taken away from it, where the focus is taken away from it, then it's going to be even more harder for them to get fair TV deals.
No, that is a valid point. But then, the problem here, as I say, is It's about sponsorship. It's about money.
Well, I know the Premier League is the cash cow.
This is it, and
everyone else is getting left behind.
And they will.
And for the future of football, that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. But right about now, we're talking about what sells. The Premier League sells. Not just TV subscriptions, but tickets. And it's always going to be more than the lower leagues, unfortunately, because they have the attraction of all of these star players. It's as simple as that. And the way that, these clubs are able to afford these star players is by making sure that, well, look, they have the TV deals in place. By making sure that the stadiums are filled week in, week out. And as you say, it's disproportionate for the rest of the football leagues, but this is how it was designed.
Yeah. And as I said, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for the future of the game over here, because basically it's like wrestling. It's constricting the business. Oh yeah. Because the Premier League is essentially just doing what WWE did, basically buying out, squashing its competition.
Absolutely.
Eventually, it'd be one of them. It'd be one of them ones where potentially it's like the B team's idea. Yeah. Look at how much is going in favour. I'm not afraid of saying I support a Premier League team, but the fact I'm wearing the shirt to prove it. But the fact seeing the match by a shirt. But it's one of them was the fact of the matter is, I don't like the way that this looks like it's going, because.
By the way, I just want to do this. Wait for it.
You're not. Oh, I thought you were gonna pass wind. Oh,
boom goes the dynamite.
He's lighting up the top. Wait, hold on. You can't see it. You gotta stand up for us to see the Christmas.
Fine.
Stuff. But whilst Gezzie shows you his flashing top, his lovely flashing top, the fact of the matter is, I said for me, more of that money's gonna go to the top. And more clubs are going to start going out of business.
Well, yeah. I mean, as I say, this is the way it's designed. This is the way it's designed, and that's the problem.
As an amateur league player, seeing the hardships that the amateur league sides go through, we're seeing Hayes and Yedding. We're seeing their problems. Those kind of cases are just going to become even worse. They're going to get even worse because all the money is going to be swallowed up by the top leagues. Yeah. As it already is. But it's going to get even bloody worse.
No, I know.
It is going to get even worse. And it's just one of them was when you've got the powers that be in football, yeah, let's bring in something to have Premier League B teams in the conference. It's like, oh, you really don't get it, do you? You're essentially gonna embolden and strengthen something that is already almost untenably strong, and you've got but the frustrating thing is you've got the powers that be saying that, trying to basically keep the money at the top, because that's essentially what it was. Yeah, let's let Premier League B teams in, but with their facilities and with the money that the Premier League teams they can throw at a potential B team, they're just gonna rise up. And they're just gonna they're gonna blow everyone away. And the other team's not gonna be able to keep up. So I do not like this idea of Premier League games going to Friday nights. I'm totally against it.
I have to say
I'm not in favour of it.
I agree with you, because at the end of the day, right, in terms of coverage, in terms of promotion, right, the football leagues, and I say that plurally, the football leagues have such a small portion of that particular pie that all that's going to happen is their portion gets eaten by somebody else, and it will just fail to exist.
It gets even smaller and goes to the top that doesn't need anymore.
The problem with this is, if this does go on and be successful, as we say, is that, well, my question is, if this does go forward, right, it poses a big question for me. It says, well, how is the Football League going to be funded? How is it going to continue? Yeah. Does that mean that essentially we get rid of all other divisions now? Because essentially that's what's going to happen. Yeah. Man. So, I mean, I understand the appeal, and I understand why the broadcasters would want it, because obviously, as I say, Premier League.
Well, they're just hungry for content.
But this is it. But I'm like, why not, expand their content on the football leagues? Why not do that? Why not make that available?
Yeah.
I mean, like, here's my thing. I'm not against, for example, seeing Italian football or Dutch football or Brazilian football on the likes of ESPN, for example. But I'd also argue, why not have, some of the Football League matches on there?
Yeah, of course.
Why not have them instead of Italian football, Dutch football, Brazilian football, just to give the exposure? If you don't happen to be one of those loyal fans who's going to, a Football League team week in, week out, with how coverage of games on major outlets is now, it's very difficult to keep abreast of who the top young talents are in the lower division.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at the Football League show on Saturday nights, and it's one of them ones. Look how quick the highlights are, especially once you get down to League One, League Two. Boom, 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 boom. They've only got time in an hour and a bit program. They've got to cover 72 teams. And they only get like an hour 10, hour 15, hour 20 minutes to cover 72 teams. So they've got to go through like a minute or two's worth of highlights, and that's it. And if you want to keep up on other teams, I mean, it's next to impossible unless you're going to those grounds.
And that's what I mean. In that now, with this potential deal, if that does go through, then what's left? Nothing. So,
I mean, we've already seen one digital TV provider, about 13 years ago, drop out because there wasn't enough money in terms of the coverage of the Football League. I mean, it's one of them that just wasn't sustainable. I think it was, ITV Digital / On Digital. It was one of them ones. Yeah. They couldn't get the Premier. Was it at one point? I think it was On Digital. They couldn't get the Premier League rights. They lost those, and they were left with the Football League. But because everything was going to the Premier League and it was such a cash cow, there wasn't much left. And a lot of the Football League teams got burned by that, and they lost a lot of money. They were promised millions and never got it, and clubs were almost folding because of it. And we could see that kind of situation again.
Well, as I say, especially if something like this goes through. And then, of course, you have to look at the implications, not just here, but across Europe. And then after Europe, across the world. Because look, as I say, the top tier leagues are the ones that make the most money. They're the ones that attach to all the sponsors. So if they're the ones that make the most money, they're the ones that attach to all the sponsors, what happens to everybody else? A lot of people happen to forget that a lot of the stars in the top leagues happen to ply their trade at some point or another, be it on loan or, being that they started out at these clubs in the lower levels of football.
Of course.
So if you're not going to go and have, for example, not necessarily, I'm not even asking for even coverage. That's not it. I would ask for a bigger slice of the pie for the Football League.
It's just fairer coverage.
But, even if things stay as they are and it's still disproportionate, that's better than what this proposed deal is going to be offering. I would say this, right? You don't have the fairy tale story of a Ricky Lampert joining his boyhood team, his hometown team, without the lower leagues of football.
Yeah, of course.
Simple as that.
I mean, coming back to what we were talking about in terms of the academy thing with Chelsea, with guys like Patrick Bamford, among others. If there's no League One, League Two, no Championship,
because of there being no money, because the leagues can't be
and there's already there's already a constriction, and managers like Mourinho are shutting down eventually the academies.
Yeah,
where are you developing talent? Where are players coming from? Cheap foreign imports, and the England team will end up getting even worse. There's knock-on effects. There are knock-on effects to everything, and again, it's looking at the bigger picture. It is legitimately looking at the bigger picture, which a lot of fans don't do. A lot of the powers that be don't do because they don't give a damn. They're lying in their own pockets and they really don't give a damn. The bigger clubs don't give a damn about stuff like that until the crap hits the fan. And by then, it's too late. So, I don't know, man. I mean, if any of the Skypers want to jump in on the point that we're discussing, Mike Heineman, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I do. I think it's got potential to work, but they have to do it right. with the Football League, I know they could potentially lose out on it, but you've got MU TV, you've got Liverpool TV, you've got like Chelsea TV. You don't need them channels. Why don't you just scrap them channels altogether, change it round, have Sky doing what they want to do with their Friday night, Saturday, Sunday and whatever. Those channels are all radio based anyway. They're all coming through commentary. Have one for the Football League. Have one for each league where they have live games. They have a Football League highlight from that division on there where they can go more in depth on that league. Do you know what I'm saying?
But remember,
I'd love to see that, but the Premier League is selfish. They're not going to do that. And the FA are enablers in regards to that. Look at Greg Dyke's proposal of the Premier League B teams. They're enablers.
But with that though, the other issue that I raise with this is that the club TV channels themselves, they've got nothing to do with anybody else. They're funded by their own clubs.
Yeah.
So provided that their clubs have enough money, for them to go and get a broadcast TV deal isn't that much of an issue. Because as long as they keep on continuing to provide content, whoever's going to give them the deal is happy. And with the likes of your bigger clubs who have, long storied histories, like your Liverpools, Manchester Uniteds, Chelseas, etc., they have so much content, not just of the current season where you probably could catch, under 19s, under 18s game, under 16s game, reserve team game, in addition to everything else, like for example the press conferences, sometimes a look inside the training ground for training up to big matches, those kinds of things. It's like, well, look, it's what the fans want. That's how they put the channel together in the first place. You know what I mean? But it's more a matter of, for example, with the likes of, say, ITV, having ITV1, ITV2, ITV3, ITV4. Are you really trying to tell me that one of those channels can't continue to show some of the Football League? Are you telling me that Sky Sports with their 5 sports channels can't show some of the Football League?
But the ironic thing is, it's like Sky Sports 5. Your destination for European football and the Champions League. Okay, so why can't you do that for the Football League then?
This is it.
You bring up an F1 channel, why can't you do a Football League channel? That's why I like Mike's idea in terms of having maybe even a channel each league.
Yeah.
But the Premier League's selfish and won't help that. And the FA are enabling that selfish attitude as well. I would love to see that. I would love to see that happen because then it gives people more choice. Right now, people really have only got the illusion of choice. You've got choice within the Premier League of what you watch on a general basis live and whatever they want to give you in terms of the Football League. But if you had a channel per league, then there might be a knock. There might be the other side of it. Might be that there might be a knock-on effect in terms of certain people they would rather, instead of going to games, they would be like, well, I'm gonna stay home and watch Stevenage tonight. I'm gonna stay home and watch Leyton Orient.
No, it's not like that. I
was gonna say, but it's not gonna be like that all the time, of course. Because the dedicated fans will always still.
It wouldn't be that live game. There'd be a current. You'd have your slot. You'd have like, the 1st of January could be Luton against Mansfield or whoever. Well,
exactly how they do the Premier League now on kind of a round robin. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I mean, it'd be one of them ones. Some might argue that there would be the knock-on effect of, not as many people are going to go through the turnstiles because they're able to watch it on TV. But that provision, basically of watching it on TV, that provision would be there just purely on the basis that if you can't get to the game, then you can watch it there. And also, it would also actually help teams keep their ticket prices down because they'd be getting television.
And the FA Cup, what the FA Cup done as well, where they had the FA Cup live, where it was they had about 8 games this season, and they were commentating from each ground. They could do that on the channels as well,
easily. I mean, also one of the main kind of positive things about having a channel each league would be the fact that they could have just like what the Premier League does. You've got each team having a share, dependent on position. they've got a share of those TV league rights. And also, if you've got the broadcasting power of a Sky Sports, it'd be a case of you'd be able to get that channel to more fans, and you would be able to help those teams in the Championship, League One, League Two, and other leagues grow their fan base. Which, at the end of the day, if people take on a second team, they take on like you, Mike Honeyman, like Wayne Schumann, taking on Arsenal and Stevenage. People will potentially take on a team in League One, League Two, because they're being able to watch it and they're being impressed by it, and take on a Premier League team as well. So it'd be one of them ones you're just going to expose to more fans, which is why I don't like this whole closed shop mentality that is being fostered and enabled in terms of keeping the money at the Premier League.
And just lastly, the Premier League wouldn't lose out on that as well, because you'd have your youth players from the Premier League who are being sent out on loan, and obviously you get to see them as well. They'll be on loan in these leagues anyway, so you can kind of keep an eye on that too.
There we go. See, it's one of them. See that it's thinking of the big picture, thinking of the big picture, which I don't think is done enough in football, especially not with supporters. But the PT family, hey, we're a different breed. The PT family are a different breed, I gotta say. But I mean, it is legitimately frustrating. It is legitimately frustrating that they wanted to do it. Russ, if you want to jump in quickly before we got to move on.
Yeah, I do, because I actually posted a link out about this when I saw it on Friday onto my Facebook wall, which the Gman saw, and one of my friends on there, Ollie Simcase, who was a Notts County fan, she put a very interesting, instead of the Football League, every less chance of them being on the TV. She says, I'm afraid football's a dying sport, or less you have money, unless you have money when you can go and watch it. She's afraid football's going to become a dying sport with the Football League losing out. Like I've been saying in the Skype chat to Mike, if the likes of, say, if BT don't win the rights to the Friday night live matches for the Premier League games, and Sky take over Friday night for the Premier League games and not show Football League, why don't they take over and become the Football League official partners for live matches on a Friday night, on Saturdays, with Sky just doing the Premier League, is just schedule Premier League early kick-off and lunch and evening kick-offs, and let BT just do the Football League. And regarding the Football League, the moving highlights programmes that's going to be switching from next season. It's moving over to Channel 5 with a 90-minute programme aired at 9 p.m. every Saturday evening, when it'll also be repeated on the Sunday morning like it is this year as well.
Well, you know what? I think like I explained earlier with what happened with On Digital, it's just one of them ones. I think some entities such as BT Sport will have seen the mistakes made by On Digital back in 2001, 2002, where they didn't get the Premier League rights. They didn't win those, so all they had was the Football League, and it wasn't sustainable, and they went under. It wasn't sustainable, and a lot of Football League teams were promised money and never got it. Some actually folded because of it. So it's one of them ones. But once again, in terms of Channel 5 having a hour and a half program for the Football League, Channel 5's coverage is not brilliant. It's pretty poor, to be honest, and pretty much always has. So is the Football League's credibility going to be hurt by poor coverage? If Eurosport were to get it, I'd have that same concern, because Eurosport's coverage I'm not a fan of. Their commentary is utterly awful. I think they've only got one proper commentator, and at one point I heard him on TNA Wrestling trying to put on a fake American accent. This dude was doing everything.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that the poor coverage would definitely harm anything else right now, in terms of the potential deal going forward. But having said that, though, even if they do have that kind of amicable split, again, I don't know how beneficial that would be, because really it's all about going to the top level. And I think both of the companies involved, in terms of the main two to get the rights to show football, they would have to both show the football leagues and the Premier League just to make it worthwhile. Whereas right now, as I say, in terms of the options, it's limited. I think it needs to be open. There needs to be an agreement with the football league to say, look, we have no problem with you showing the Premier League. We understand the need to show that, but there's also a commitment to showing the football leagues as well. You know, and this is how we're going to do it. And that both of you, in terms of, say, for example, we're talking about Sky and BT, you both have to show X amount of Premier League games and X amount of Football League games, regardless of which one of the football leagues it comes from. But it needs to be covered equally. They both need to have a few shows, because what we're about is promoting the future of the game as well. You know, the FA is talking about their 5-point plans and all this other stuff about the regeneration of the England team and how they're going to go about doing that. I'm like, well, look, if you're not also focused on how you're going to continue to promote the football that's currently being played, which is part of that future of football, I might add, then what are we really talking about in terms of your 5-point plan? It's not really there, is it? So,
I mean, there's an interesting point that Mike Harneman has put in the Skype chat in terms of Football League don't even show their highlight shows in midweek. Only Saturday you have to rely on catching up online. That's another benefit to the channel online. Can be more interviews, etc. That's a true point. But also the BBC can't really necessarily offer too much, because that's a different animal. That's license payers' money.
Yeah.
Whereas Sky Sports, BT Sport, they're commercial, so they can afford to offer a lot more in the tender stage.
yeah.
So that's the huge difference there. I mean, ITV obviously rely on advertising. That's why they've got the breaks in. BBC don't have to rely on advertising, because obviously they're funded by the license fee. But at the same time, because they're funded by the license fee, they can't bid as much as, say, a Sky Sports. So it's an interesting one. And also that's an interesting one about that's another benefit to the channel online, could be more interviews. Well, most clubs do that in-house now anyway, or at least are starting to do their own interviews in-house.
Yeah.
So it would just be about those clubs being able to monetize those revenue streams. But if they're not getting exposure on the bigger channels, then they're not going to be able to monetize those revenue streams.
There's no incentive to do it either.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to the quandary we find ourselves in with Pitch Talk, your Monday Night Football and Vic. Without going too deep into it, what I will say is we lack the exposure that we need to develop and build things in the way that we'd want to. I said I'm not going to go too deep into it, because there's a lot more to it than that. But the bottom line is exposure is very, very important, and if you're not getting it, it makes things a lot harder. We do these shows every single Monday night off our own backs. So if anyone was to criticize us and say, "Oh, you're low budget," I would retort back with low budget. What budget? There ain't no low budget. It's no budget. But at the end of the day, partly because of the lack of budget, there's a lack of exposure as well. Obviously, we always ask for the PT family and the Skypers etc. to help promote our stuff so we can grow it. But at the end of the day, if we're not getting the exposure of the main TV channel, then it's difficult. And it's the same situation with, I said it's a similar situation with the Football League. If you're not getting the exposure on the main channels, then it's harder for you to be seen.
Yeah.
Very much it's harder for you to be seen.
That's it. And if you're not being seen, then you're not being heard. And if you're not being seen or heard, then, well, why? That really is the question. But, you know, therein lies the problem. Therein lies, as you say, the quandary, and it's for the powers that be to sort out. It's for the football leagues to stand up for themselves versus the Premier League to explain, as I say, well, look, most of the future stars in football who happen to play in the Premier League happen to come from a lower league. For example, I happen to use Nick Powell. Now, is he a big star at the minute? No, he's not. But where did he come from? The lower leagues of football. Simple as that. Again, Ricky Lambert played through all the divisions. to be at the top. So, you know, it's a matter of either, you know, the powers that be look to invest in this and, as I say, have terms and conditions on the bidding of football coverage to say, well, look, we're more than happy for you to show the Premier League, but you also have to show the football leagues as well. You know, because we do need to generate money to support the football league. And this is the other thing that I'm trying to get my head around, them not explaining it in this way. How can you not sell it in that way? And as I say, the future stars of English football happen to come from grassroots, and
they have to develop in some way. They have to develop somewhere. They have to cut their teeth somewhere.
This is it.
It's like it's like bloody it's like the stars of the WWE. Coming back, giving the wrestling analogy, the stars of the WWE, guys like say your Dean Ambrose, who nickname for him is hilarious. That's why I know.
Yeah, no. I know that's why you're laughing.
Guys like him, guys like CM Punk, guys like Bubba Ray Dudley or Bully Ray. Them guys came up through the indie circuit, aka the grassroots. I mean, Bubba Ray came up through ECW, which is very much grassroots. Then moved to the WWF. Look at him now. It's taken him over a decade to get to the spot where he's at. CM Punk went through the indies, went through ROH, among others. TNA during their asylum years. It's one of them was it Ambrose apparently came through like CZW and built his way up. Yep, there we go, passing through ROH. So you've got to be, you can't get rid of the indies or the grassroots area of the game.
Does it say, well, where did future stars come from? They say that's where they come from. Not, you know, and sometimes, like, you have to go and look at, say, for example, you know, one of the players that I like to make an example of is, say, like a Brian Shawcross. He had to leave the likes of Manchester United to go to Stoke to actually find out, actually he's pretty damn good. See what I mean? So, without those other clubs, how do you even know if what you've got is any good anyway?
There we go.
You know, gotta let them prove themselves. And Mike Hardeman actually happened to point out about George Boyd as well.
Yeah.
He now plays for Burnley from Stevenage. And of course, Steve Morrison as well. Absolute animal in the lower leagues. So again, it's like without having those lower leagues, you know, like where do you go and where do these players come from? Like another example that I'll throw out there is Andy Johnson.
Yeah, very much.
When he was at Palace the first time.
Yeah.
Absolute animal. Absolute animal in the lower leagues. So it's like, well, look, without him going through, I mean, again, I just think more attention needs to be paid to this. As I say, grassroots, you know, and everything in between grassroots and the very, very top. That's where the money needs to go. Because without it, we can't support it. It's going to be like a very poorly thought out trifle. It's only going to implode on itself.
Yeah. It's one of them was the layer cake's going to collapse on itself.
That's it.
But I said it is one of them. I said it is one of them was where like it's just. I don't think the powers that be are going to see it until it's too late. And we will have been banging the drum for years. But again, because of the lack of exposure that we have, some may not take us as seriously. So that's where the double-edged sword is. It's hard to get the exposure if you're not in a so-called serious or big, or in terms of being put out to a big audience.
Another example that we're given is Leon Britton as well. So, you know, this is the thing, like, where do you go and find those players? And let's not forget, where did Joe Hart start again? Was it Shrewsbury Town?
He cut his teeth at Birmingham. Chris Smalling, same thing, Maidstone United.
So it's like, well, look, you know, for him to come from there, it's like, well, look, without the coverage, and I'm talking about without the footage for scouts to go and see, right? Because they must have seen it from somewhere. Do you even know who Joe Hart is? Does he even go to Manchester City? Does he becoming the number one? No. So, unless you want to go and find another player like that, as I say, you have to look somewhere. The answers aren't always, over the pond and across the sea.
Yeah. I mean, the Premier League clubs are so busy trying to get an edge on each other that they just don't really give a damn. Hoarding players. I was talking with someone about a few days back.
Oh, we happened to talk about Manchester City and Chelsea.
Well, among other teams, just hoarding the young talent and hampering their development. Jack Rodwell, Scott Sinclair, among other examples. Daniel Sturridge could be lumped in there in terms of when he went from Man City to Chelsea. There's the number of people who have had their talent hampered by a big club coming in. Some you could argue Ryan Babel. Could argue that. So that's what I learned. Yeah, Wilfred Zaha's a good example. Not a bad example.
Independent Klein as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the fact that we're able to find all these examples, and Pitch Talk family is able to find all these examples, just gives more credence to our argument. And that, well, look, either we happen to, and I say we, as the powers that be, speaking on their behalf, either they, let's differentiate here, either they go and make the conscious decision to support the football leagues in addition to the Premier League, or the likes of these players don't get found. It's as simple as that.